What is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. And of course, today we're going to bring you guys a Rumble showcase of one of that new Super Sugo-fest exclusive characters that we were lucky enough to pull last night. So with the way that this character is designed, you can run him in a lot of different scenarios. You can use him in a mono dex team, like what we're doing here. You could also potentially use him in a powerhouse team, which I think it could also be something that we could kind of discover. This video is just looking at mono dex. I kind of did a hybrid of like dex powerhouse focused team, so everyone is dex powerhouse for this squad, but also the fact that you could potentially use a full like 5 elder team, and you could potentially build something around that. Though with the way that Saturn is built, I don't know if that's going to actually work all that well. But when we first saw the details for this character's kit, I was kind of excited to kind of test him out. Because of the way that he works, he like, you know, uses his special ability, he forces himself out, but then when he comes back, he's going to be launching his special way faster, and that's the kind of like the way that he kind of works. He kind of snowballs his way into the fight. It's really tough to get his special to launch initially. A 35 CT special, and what it does is great. It does a lot of different things, and then his rumble ability also fantastic. But you know, during that short time period that he gets forced out, obviously his rumble ability isn't going to be active. However, when he uses his special ability, he forces out an opponent. He also action binds all of the opponents. So like there's a good chance that after he uses his special, despite the fact he gets forced out, the enemies are going to be so severely debuffed during that little time period that it's really not going to be that big of an issue that you know, that he is going to be forced out. And of course, when a character is forced out, they are still continuing to charge their special ability. So with Peter here, he does have that ability to charge his special while he is forced out, and when he comes back for another 10 seconds, he is going to be immune to damage through defense, or fixed damage, whichever it is, which is a really nice bonus, which gives him some added defense. And forcing himself out is also like another layer of added defense as well, which is kind of interesting. So you know, if you get yourself in a really interesting situation where he forces himself out, but then you have like an opponent that resists force out or has like abilities to use their special really quickly, having the ability to get around that is quite good. But the obvious issue that I've found with this character so far is the fact that using his special for the first time in a match is actually kind of tough, because he has a relatively high CT, but after you use his special once and you're able to cycle through it like a second time, like it's pretty much GG. If you can get his special to launch twice in a run, I just don't see how like a modern built team can just lose in that fashion, because his special and his rumble abilities are so strong and potent, it just helps you clear the opponent so much easier. So moving on to this next clip here, which is going to be against the challenge difficulty Sakazuki. This one is not an ultra difficult fight. The only real problematic character really is really the Akainu and the Garp. Those two characters do the most damage and can be the most threatening, and technically Ace and Whitebeard can also be a little bit threatening because they do launch their special when they are knocked out. But the rest of the characters on this team aren't ultra threatening against modern teams, that is. So yeah, it's not really that big of an issue, and having this ability of Peter being able to like not only just debuff the enemies by a pretty substantial amount, but the fact that he also inflicts 4 times damage against large range enemies as well is a really nice addition too. And then also he does that massive wide range of debuffs, you know, lowering their defense by level 10, their speed level 10, CT speed down level 5, and then also delaying them as well. So he's just applying all of these debuffs to them, which then allows your other hard-hitting characters on your team, like in this instance with Lucci. Like, Lucci doesn't do damage through defense, but of course at level 150 he will do a solid amount of damage, and especially if he's able to launch after, you know, St. Peter can use his special. Like, these characters just absolutely melt through the opponent after Peter can launch his special. But obviously that's the main issue. If you can get Peter to launch first, then yes, you're going to be in good stead. So potentially building your team around having some more special CT at the start of the quest would be a really nice addition to this squad.
Moving on to the next one, which is going to be against Weevil. This is actually my second time recording this particular clip. On the very first run, when Weevil launched his special, it just straight up knocked St. Peter out, which, you know, characters that do massive damage through defense can be problematic in that sense. You know, S-Hawk can just end a game if they just knock out the right character at the right time. It's just GG. And of course, I wanted to kind of showcase St. Peter, so the fact that Weevil knocked him out like so efficiently, I was like, okay, yeah, we gotta try this again. Luckily, Peter was able to survive, so he could actually showcase exactly what he is doing. So of course, he is able to be used in like a quick team or in a Dex team or a Dex powerhouse team. And he does have the resistance of paralysis and special bind, which is interesting, as well as giving himself 30% damage reduction versus quick enemies. So the quick Kuzan on the opponent's side of the team that would normally inflict that really heavy special bind, we can just ignore that. But of course, the fact that he is resistant to paralysis and special bind leaves him open to be hit by other debuffs, like the really heavy damage over time, or stuff like action bind, force out. He can still be inflicted by all these very common debuffs that you see in modern Rumble teams. So I do think these are going to be some of the pitfalls with this character. I think we need probably more characters in the game that are able to resist special reverse, considering like special CT delay has been such a common thread, at least within the past like 12 months of Rumble. Characters that have really fast acting specials that can delay special CT are just so incredibly busted, and we just don't have enough characters in the game that resist that specific debuff. So if I could see anything, I would love to see more characters that can resist that to really offset people bringing those types of units in their Rumble teams. The fourth clip here is going to be against the S-Hawk's special fight, the challenge difficulty quest. I actually was a little concerned heading into this one. I did think that, you know, because like the Dex team is pretty good, but the only real issue is like, you know, slashers typically are known for having very high special CT and being able to launch their specials incredibly fast. But luckily for us, things just go our way. Things just go really, really well for us in this quest. And yeah, it just goes to show once again that, you know, when Peter is able to launch that special, the amount of advantage that you gain in that fight is just incredible. So we'll have to wait and see. I might have to do a little bit more research in regards to some characters that you could potentially bring to ensure that Peter can launch his special faster than usual, or potentially bringing more characters onto your team that can delay enemy CT to give you more time to launch that Peter special. One thing overall though is I don't think Peter is going to be a very good Grand Party leader. I'm not really a big fan of his build in Grand Party, especially because we just have so many other really strong characters to use in GP, but potentially could be used on a Dex team or a Powerhouse team in Grand Party. I just wouldn't pick him as my specific leader because there's just so many other better characters you can potentially use. But speaking more on this fight against S-Hawk, once the front line is gone, the bench is just fodder. Like, just absolute fodder. Nothing to worry about here. But once S-Hawk and Roger and Whitebeard are gone, this fight is essentially free. Moving on to the final clip here is going to be versus the Carrot challenge difficulty. This one can be a little tricky because they are relatively bulky. And I don't remember which character does it in this fight, but I think there is one of the characters on the opponent's side of the field puts a buff on their side, which negates their characters from being inflicted with action bind, which is a little bit of an issue because obviously St. Peter with his special ability, not only does he inflict a ton of debuffs, but he does have that ability to inflict all enemies with action bind for 5 seconds, and if the enemies can negate that, then that really dampens the advantage that Peter would normally give to your team. Obviously, you still get some other advantages. You're still inflicting them with a ton of debuffs, but hey, those characters that can resist action bind are still going to be a problem because you do remember that when Peter uses his special ability, he will be forcing himself out, so all of his passive debuffs on the enemy side of the field that are normally present will be removed for 10 seconds. Peter also gives you a very substantial HP boost, so it does make your characters a little less tanky for those for that short period of time. So all of these things in mind, like, if the enemies can just resist a ton of the things that Peter does, then obviously you're going to be in a bit of strife. But obviously, when he does launch that special, you just get so many additional effects out of that that it usually will offset it, even though in this instance the enemies are just resistant to that action bind anyway. You are still inflicting them with special reverse, you are still giving them defense down, which does allow your characters to hit them and also tank the hits from them because they're not launching their specials, and you'll be able to do a lot of damage to them with their really squishy defenses. But that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this guy so far. Of course, this showcase was fully dedicated to using him on Dex powerhouse focused teams, but he does have a lot of different options in regards to the ways that you can use him, whether you run mono Dex, whether you run mono powerhouse, whether you run that combination, and then of course potentially using him on the tag focused team in the future could be a potential option, but we'll have to see how the rest of these characters are designed to see whether or not that's actually going to be worth it. I don't think it will be. I think he's definitely going to settle either on Dex or powerhouse, but we'll see moving forward. Definitely a really fun character to use, something a little bit different that you don't normally see. I really like the interesting design for him, and hopefully we can get our hands on the secondary Super Sugo-fest exclusive of the batch, because I definitely want to showcase him in Rumble as well, because he does seem very, very strong. But that is going to wrap it up from me. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I will see you guys within the next video.
救いたい人は同じだ。父を頼む。終わりだ。チンチン。ねえ。覇気だけが全てを凌駕する。